Welcome to the City and County of Denver's Electrification Feasibility Report training. This video will be specific to HVAC installers and contractors who want to complete an EFR for a building owner. Prior to watching this video, you should have already been granted access or requested access to the EFR tool online. And if you have not done so yet, please go to denvergov.org and look up the Electrification Feasibility Reports section of the website. And on the website, you'll find a link to request access to the tool. Okay, let's get started here. The first step would be signing in to our account. And once we're in, we're going to see these apps over here. We want to go to the Denver Commercial Electrification app, and we're going to click on buildings. Now in here, it's important to note that you'll see a list of buildings that should all show up for your specific company. And if you don't see it in this list, we want to make sure that we search for it before we create a new building. In very rare circumstances, you might need to create a new building. But for the purposes of this demonstration, we're just going to select one of the existing buildings that shows up in our list because we already have been working with them. We've created the building and we're now ready to get in and create an EFR. So for the demo, I'm going to select this building right here, and I'm going to click on the little eye view icon. And now I can just see some of the general building attributes: address, total square footage, whether or not the building is air conditioned, and a few other details about the owner. And if I scroll down, you can see down here, this is where your electrification feasibility reports and eventually your electrification projects will show up. So I'm going to stay in this electrification feasibility reports tab, and I'm going to create an electrification feasibility report by clicking on this button here. And you can see the building address is correct. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to select my contractor name, which should automatically show up since I've already created a contractor under my company. That'll automatically populate details about the company that I work for. And now I'm ready to begin the actual EFR. So let's say today I'm on site at this building, and first step I want to do here is put today's date. You can click on the little calendar. Today is the 10th. And let's just say I happen to know I'm going to present this to the customer in a month. So I can go ahead and throw that in there. We can come back and you can change this presentation date as you get closer to the actual presentation. And this EFR completion date, this will auto-populate once you submit the EFR for review. It's also important to note that at any time during this process, you can simply save and close, and that'll save all your progress up to that point so that you can come back and make edits later. So the next step is pretty straightforward. We're going to come in here and we're going to select building facility type. And this is an office space that's being served. And so let's just say our total building square footage, I don't remember what it said it was. Let's say it's 25,000 square feet. This is really an important step here because the total building square footage does not go here. This is just the area that's being served by the piece of equipment that you're evaluating. And in some cases, you might not know the exact area, and it's okay to just estimate this within, your closest ability. So in this case, let's say it's 5,200 square feet. And I'm going to be looking at a rooftop unit. So the next step you can see here is the equipment to replace. So this is what is currently on site. Well, I have a gas rooftop unit, just a standard rooftop unit. This won't give you the option for electric rooftop units because that's not what you're going to be replacing. You'll be replacing gas systems. So in this case, I'm just going to do a rooftop unit, and I might not know the proposed electric system while I'm on site. That might actually take, some outreach or some research. But for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to pretend like I sort of know all of the information, just keeping in mind that you can always save and close and come back and fill out these fields at any time before you submit. So in this case, we've gone on site and we've seen that the space is served by this existing rooftop unit. Let's say it's an old 17-year-old gas burning unit. For whatever reason, let's say, the customer is worried about maintaining space temperature set points during the winter, and it has some older windows, maybe I've noticed. For whatever reason, in this case, let's say we're going to decide to go with a dual fuel rooftop unit, meaning that it has staged heat pumps that provide heating and cooling, and then it has some gas backup rather than electric resistance backup, which will be probably pretty common. So let's come in here and say we've got a heat pump rooftop unit with gas backup. Before I click on that, you can see some of these other options that are listed here. Some of these, like NEEP certified cold climate ductless mini splits, inducted mini splits. These are your single zone or two head, two zone standard mini splits. So these would not be rooftop units. In some cases, though, you might want to remove a rooftop unit and add some single zone heat pumps like these. There's also non-cold climate certified. So NEEP is a cold climate certification. I think they're certifications for units that are under 5.4 tons, but those units are capable of maintaining their heating output capacity at lower temperatures, some down as low as -10 degrees, before they start to really lose their performance, their COP. So if you're going to do a smaller zone and you're going to be installing a split system heat pump, try to go with the cold climate certified where you can. And you can find, I'll throw a link in here later, but NEEP has a certified cold climate database where you can go in and you can search different specifications for the unit, and it'll give you model numbers that would meet that. Non-cold climate, that's just what it sounds like. Ducted and ductless. And then we also have an air to water heat pump, which right now air to water and ground source, these are not built into the modeling tool in the back end. So these may be added later as we continue to develop this tool. So for now, we're going to go ahead and select the heat pump rooftop unit with gas backup. And let's say this is keep in mind all of this here, these capacities, this is referring to your existing system. Okay. So this is your current heating capacity. And let's say in this case, we've got 90,000 BTUs. Noting the units there, because our cooling capacity is actually input in units of tons. In this case, let's say we have a 5-ton rooftop unit. And now we're going to answer some general feasibility questions. So these are things that you need to take note of. It's important, to be taking pictures, take pictures of nameplates, take pictures of the electric panel that's serving the existing equipment, anything relevant to the space, basically trying to identify, are there going to be any limitations to installing a heat pump in this location? And you'll see when I get into the domestic hot water video next, this might apply even more so for domestic hot water heaters where space can be an issue. You might be noting existing equipment model numbers so that you can compare the system weight to the new system that you spec. In this case, yes, the rooftop unit can fit. I might take some notes later down when I show you where I might note that it needs to have a different curb installed or something to lift the new rooftop unit up higher or to modify it in some way so that it fits into the duct opening. Is it possible to connect the existing ductwork to the heat pump replacement option? That's kind of getting more into that curb. Let's say no here, because we'll come up, we'll say, all right, just some, actually, I'll just select this right here. This won't show up in yours, but I've already filled this out before. So in this case, I had a 55 3/4 to 43 3/4 16-inch tall curb that was needed in order for the new system to fit. And you might, again, probably wouldn't know this while you're on site, but the more details that we can have describing this once you submit, the better. All right, so let's just say the next question here is the necessary electric infrastructure in place to accommodate the heat pump? And you definitely won't know this while you're on site. The best you can do while you're on site is going to be just noting what the electric capacity is, serving the existing equipment. So you have to find that breaker box in that specific circuit to identify the capacity. And once you get your new system spec'd, you should be able to determine, okay, what are the electric requirements, and do I have sufficient electric infrastructure in place already to meet that new load? Let's just go ahead and say no here, because I want to add some costs later, because I think we're going to have an electric service upgrade in order to meet the heat pump electric load. So I can just say, I think here, if in your notes, the more the better. But if you want to put in like the existing electric capacity, if you want to just note, there was not sufficient capacity, need to follow up with electrician. Let's just put that for now. In many cases, you'll have to work with, maybe an electrical engineer or someone. So we might not have the exact answer here. We might not know exactly what the electric upgrade needs to be, but we definitely know that there needs to be an upgrade made, and we want to associate that. We want to account for that in our costs later on. And then as we get into our design phase, pulling permits and things, this will be vetted out. And the idea is that we just want to make sure that we've captured these costs in these notes during the EFR. Okay, so we'll go to the next section. All right, this section is called gas HVAC replacement details. So this is an important and maybe not so obvious section. This is going to be where you're going to fill out the details for the gas system, like for like replacement, if you were not going to replace the existing equipment with a heat pump project. So in this case, let's just say the new rooftop unit that I would spec would be something very similar. It would be, let's say it's a Train model XYZ 90,000 5-ton unit. And you can put in more details here. I'm just kind of generalizing. I think you get the point. And again, this seems redundant, but this is just my notes. This is where I actually put in the value for the heating capacity. And then this is where I put in my cooling tons. And let's say it's let's say the gas system that I would go and bid might be a 12. And say that the EER is like a 14 and SEER is like a 14 points. The idea is that you'll go online or call your vendor or just use your knowledge and say, okay, what unit would I typically replace, and what capacity and efficiencies would that unit have if I were to install a gas system. Now we get into the interesting stuff. So now we're in the electric HVAC replacement details, and this is where you're going to put in all of the specifications for the actual electric unit or dual fuel unit in this case that we're going to be installing or that we're going to be recommending. So let's say that I want my electric replacement option is going to be a dual fuel Train model. Let's say it's a 4DCZ. Oh, that there's a dual fuel Train. That it's somewhere along that model number. And I can put in more details here, but let's just leave it at that. The replacement heat pump capacity, the heating capacity, this is where you need to pay close attention, because if you're installing a dual fuel unit, this is asking for the heat pump heating capacity, not the total heating capacity with the gas backup. And in this case, with this particular unit, I believe the heat pump heating capacity is up to 42,000. Use what type of backup heating am I going to have? So in this case, I'm going to select gas, and then now it's asking what's the backup heating capacity for this gas. I should have gas added in there. I might have to come back later and make sure that this says gas, but this is referring just to the backup heating. And in this case, it can go up to 120,000. Now I'm looking at the replacement cooling capacity, the total tonnage. In this case, it's 5 tons. And now I'm looking at the different performance criteria, or the heat pump efficiencies at different ratings. Sometimes this will say high and low. Sometimes it'll say 47 and 17. It just depends on the model and the spec you're looking at. But in this case, the heat pump, the COP at 47 is something about around 3.8, and the COP at 17 is about 2.1. And then next, we have the heat pump heating capacity at 17, and that's going to be lower than the heat pump heating capacity. This is essentially, it's high. This is the total heat pump heating capacity. This is how much heat can that heat pump put out under colder conditions, or at 17 degrees. In this case, it's 17,000. And then this is the heat pump cooling EER. You might get a high and a low value in some specs. I just want the high EER. In this case, it's 15.9, I believe. And then your SEER or IEER. And that, if you have a high and low, sometimes it's very close or very similar. Now, this is another important bit. We might be recommending that for dual fuel, this is asking, what is your estimated changeover temperature? In other words, at what temperature do you think the backup heating will start to fire? Now, the best recommendation for electrification would be to reduce as much as we can how much that gas backup is heating. And so I typically wouldn't want these systems to actually be set up with a lockout temperature like 15 or 30 degrees, because then in a lot of cases you're going to be using gas to maintain temperatures below maintain set point temperatures when the outside air temperature is below 30 degrees, when really you might just need that gas backup to kick you up maybe at startup, and then you can still use the heat pump down to, depending on the unit that you're installing, but down to colder temperatures. And so what this is really asking is for, if you were going to have a lockout, or if you're going to have a changeover temperature, what would that be? But that doesn't necessarily mean it will be installed that way. We'd really like to see these units with dual fuel installed in like an unrestricted mode, where the heat pump will actually cycle depending on the amount of time that set points are not met. So let's say it's a 20-degree morning, and my building is opening up. My gas backup would kick on, the heat pump would kick on rather, and it would try to heat that space for, let's say, a 15-minute interval. And after 15 minutes, if the space wasn't met, then the gas backup would fire until that temperature is met. So the gas backup would fire during the morning, and then let's say at 10 a.m., the temperature dips down below the set point, and the heat pump doesn't keep up for 15 minutes during that interval. So the gas backup might fire again briefly just to get it back up. So really, we like to see that unrestricted mode, because it really will push more of the heating load onto the heat pumps. And the whole purpose of electrification is obviously to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So that's what we'd like to see. So in this case, let's say I put in 15 degrees. Okay, now we're getting into our costs. So these are really your estimates based on your initial evaluation of the building. We'd like to know, if you're going to install this system, how much would it cost to get the designs to where they need to be in order to get your permit? And then I think I'm circling commissioning when I'm saying permit, but so the permitting and design will go sort of hand in hand. Then you've got your actual physical equipment costs, the installation labor, which can include cranes, it could include shutting down a road for a day, it can include anything and everything that has to do with the physical installation of the equipment, and commissioning. Now you'll notice that the gas system, these are all the costs that should be associated with that like-for-like gas replacement. So again, you probably won't actually be doing this work. This is just how much it would cost if you were going to do the gas versus the electric. And there's one more section in the electric that you can notice that's not included in gas, which is the electric infrastructure upgrade, which is down here. So that's another important item that that needs to be addressed. So I'm going to slaughter this, but let's just say my like-for-like gas, let's say for the system design, I don't have to do a whole lot of redesign. I've got, you know, the existing building designs. I don't have to make any drastic modifications to any of the ductwork. So my design cost is really just going to be, what do I need to get this permit pulled? And it's, let's say hypothetically, it's past March 1st, 2023 when I pull this permit, and so it's going to cost me a little bit more. I'm going to have a PE sign off on these designs, so let's say it's $800. My permit cost, we shall see what these cost, but for now, let's just put in here that it's, you know, $650. And again, save this at any point in time. I'll actually show you. Let's say, oh, we got to go and find out more information. So I'm going to go ahead and save this and close it. What does that look like? Okay, so now here is the building. Let me just come back all the way to my home page, because like I'm logging in again. My apps, let's say. I just logged in again. I'm going to come into my app here, and I'm back here again. And you'll see that this home page has a list of EFRs and electrification projects. So you should be able to see any of your EFRs right from here. And if you can't, you can still go into, yeah, there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to see any that you've saved right here, but I could also navigate this way and go to my building if I wasn't sure which EFR it is, and open my building up. And now you can see there's this EFR that's been created down here. So let's go back now. So there's view, and I should also note you have to click edit. If I click view, it's not going to let me edit any of these fields. I have to actually click that edit button when I open it, or come in here and I can click edit here as well. So it should take me right back to where I left off. And okay, cool. So we went out and we got a hold of our vendor, and they let us know that this new system is going to be $8,200. And I've been working with my crew, and I've put together a bid and my installation cost. I'm going to have to shut down a road, and I'm going to have to rent a crane, and it's going to take me at least 8 hours with two people on site, let's say. So what's that total installation cost? You tell me. Let's say it's, you know, $9,500. That's probably drastically wrong, but just forgive me. Now we have our commissioning costs. Well, this is a gas like-for-like system, not a whole lot to happen. I don't have to really go, you know, the commissioning costs are what is it going to take to get the system up and operating once you have it installed, get it balanced, you know, anything, get it integrated with the control system, make sure your sensors are all operating and communicating effectively, outside air is being controlled correctly. So let's say this is another $750. Okay, so there we go. Now we've got our total gas like-for-like system cost right here, $19,900. That seems somewhat reasonable. I don't think I'm too horribly off on that. And now I'm going to move on. Next section. This is our replacement electric system cost. So this is where all of those costs will go in again for our dual fuel unit. So just comparing the numbers here, I know that these will typically be a little bit higher. Sometimes I've seen equipment costs actually lower, but that's usually with electric resistance backup. If it's a gas backup system, then the rooftop unit has all of those gas components in it still, so I would expect that equipment to be a little bit more expensive. Keeping in mind that you're going to want to include any markup here as well. So, you know, the cost of the equipment from your vendor, if you're going to charge any markup to the building owner, you want all of that to be captured here. We want these total costs to be as close as possible to what the building owner is actually going to see at the end of the day when they get invoiced. So our design cost, let's say in this case, okay, well, we know we have electric upgrade. The physical upgrade needs to happen, but we need some design associated with that. We have this new curb adapter that needs to be designed, or just at least someone has to check over to make sure we've got a good plan in place need to get my PE stamp on this thing. So let's say this is $2,500 to get that design work done. And let's say our permit is going to be a little bit higher because of all of that. I don't know what these numbers will pan out to be. That's why we're doing this pilot. Electric system costs. Okay, now this is my actual equipment. All right, so my gas system cost is $8,200. Let's say this one's going to be $12,500. All right, and now that's including my markup, right? My 5%, whatever I'm taking back. Electric system costs. This is going to be your installation costs. Those will probably be somewhat similar. You know, I have to rent a crane, have to shut the road down. You know, I still have 2 crew on site. They might be a little bit higher. You know, they might have some special training. This crew, because they're familiar with the dual fuel heat pump system, them and my commissioning folks, they might need to have a little bit more special skill set. So let's say it's a little bit more expensive at $11,000. And the same goes true with my commissioning. It may not be as simple as you know, just hooking up the gas lines and the you know, thermostat. I might need to actually go in and hook up a computer here and program the unit to say this is how the heat pump staging is going to occur. I might even have to go back on site after a few weeks to see how it's been performing. Maybe the rooftop unit's got some built-in data management system, or maybe the building has an integrated control system, or some way of me actually confirming, okay, are these heat pumps, are they staging correctly? Is my backup heating staging correctly? So let's say this is going to be a little bit more. This commissioning in this case is going to be $3,500 before the system is up and running the way that I want it to be. Okay, now we've got all the same fields. We're already pretty significantly higher, but let's say our infrastructure, that's a whole nother thing. We got to work with our electricians. Now we're saying, okay, what do we got? What do we need? How much is it going to cost? And after my electricians came back to me, they said that this is going to be a $4,500 cost, and that's just to get the just to get the power from the power at the breaker increased, and the, you know, maybe the new lines pulled to the unit or what have you. Okay, so now I've got all my costs. I'm just about done. I can see that it's going to be a little bit more pricey, but we're going to find out once this gets reviewed if this price difference is justified in installing the dual fuel system. So all that's left now. This is something that if you these utility bills, I want to say that you might not know their gas rate structure. We're asking that you please ask the customer while you're on site. It saves time on the back end reviewing, making extra calls. You're already there. The customer might know, and you might be able to see one of their bills. Another important note here. During the review, what we're looking for are the actual utility bill data. That might be something that we get a signed release form from the building owner and send it off to Excel. They send us, you know, a PDF that we have to then pull from and build it into our tool on the back end to sort of provide us a sanity check to say are our numbers penciling out, or maybe their gas usage was unexpectedly high. So it's important for us to know, first of all, to get the utility billing data. That's not your job, but just know that that's happening. And it's very important to get these rate structures correct, because these actually go into the calculation for what the energy costs are going to be. So these are really important to get these right. So if you don't know them, or if you have any questions and you're uncertain, just leave them blank. But I would encourage you to fill them out if you know them. The one other piece of information I want to bring up here is that especially for buildings that are over 25,000 square feet, if they're conforming to the building performance standard in Denver, then they should have started their Energy Star portfolio manager accounts last year. This is just helpful for us. It's not required by any means to complete the EFR, but if you do happen to identify that if your customer says, yes, we have a building performance or Energy Star account, that's something that we'd like to get in touch with them about, because that makes the whole downloading of their utility data process much easier. And I can close these projects out during review much quicker. If I'm not waiting for Excel to send me data and then having to pull that from a PDF into the tool, I can actually get on the phone with the building owner, and I can walk them through how to go into their portfolio manager account, click a couple buttons, and they can actually download the Excel of their usage and send that to me directly. So if you can help me to identify that, it's helpful, but again, not required. So let's say in this case, this is a large commercial. You can see we have a residential and small commercial. These are the gas rate structures. So this is a large commercial gas, and let's say it is a secondary general. Well, let's say it's small commercial time of use. These don't have to be the same name. And then here, this is where you're going to provide any notes. You might want to say, the windows or single pane, and anything you want to include here that's specific to the site that you think is important for me to know, important to have during the presentation, during the actual customer meeting where you're going to be presenting the output of this to them. One other thing, these contractor notes, when you're back in your buildings, when you're back at home, when you're back in the building rather, you'll see these in the table at the bottom where you saw the EFRs. And so if you have multiple pieces of equipment for the same building, which may be the case over time, right now, one EFR is just for one piece of equipment. So you might run across a case where a building owner says, hey, we want to do these 2 rooftop units, and you'll have to do this process for each unit individually. And if that's the case, it's a good practice to put in some kind of identifier in these notes. And I'll show you why in a minute. So let's say this one, RTU number 3. That's the unit per the buildings, the way that they've named their rooftop units. And then I can say, windows, period, just any other notes. But if you start by saying what the unit number is, it'll be helpful later. So I'm just gonna leave this blank because you get the point. Okay, so now I've completed all this. I've reviewed it. My team, everybody's comfortable with these numbers. And now I want to close it out. So now you have accepted your terms and conditions, and you just hit submit. And what will happen then is I will get a notification, and Michaels will review the EFR, and then you will receive email confirmation once the EFR has been reviewed, and we'll be ready to take the next steps. Let's go in here and see real quick when I go back to my buildings why I wanted to do the unit number, because if I'm in my demo building and I'm coming down here, that the contractor's notes here will have that unit number. And so if I've got multiple EFRs for this same building, let's say I've got 4 rooftop units, this will help me to discern which rooftop unit it is I'm referring to. And that's all I've got for you. Thank you for watching. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. Email us at electrification@denvergov.org. And otherwise, good luck with your EFRs. Thanks a lot.